Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Michael Montgomery and I'm the broker with Renzo Real Estate. Today we are talking about one of the most common objections you will hear when listing a property. Will you reduce your commission? Let's hop right in. First off, we need to understand the concept of value and price. Anytime in the world with anything, if value is equal, if it's the exact same thing, you're probably going to choose the one that's priced less. There is part of the population that will choose the higher price point, but it's about 5%. There is part of the population that will choose the lowest price point no matter what, and that amount is probably about 15%. So both of those categories are not ones that you necessarily need to be jumping into. The remainder is the 80%, and this 80% will choose based on value and price. Value equal, lower price. Value difference, now price difference. That's the 80%. Understand that concept because as a listing realtor, you need to demonstrate your value. You need to show the seller why you are worth your commission amount. So, that is where we get into. Show your value first. So if you need to know more about the listing process, we get into that in other videos and other sessions. But in the listing process, quite simply, you should go over your commission at the very end. If you go into commission and the market value of their home right off the start, these numbers are the only thing that's going to be in their heads. They're not even going to care about your marketing. They're not going to listen to your pitch. It's all going to be about the number of their home and commission. So in the listing process, as you start to go through it, what I do is I do the CMA and the market value of the home, second last, and then commissions finally at the end, so you can have that open conversation. By the time you get to that point, being that you've gone through everything, you've had some meetings with them, you've had conversations, oftentimes they won't even bring it up because they see how much your value truly is. That's why we do commissions last. Now, the question will come up with certain people, will you reduce your commission? And at that point in time, you have an opportunity. You have an opportunity, and it's not meant to put you into a difficult position. It is a difficult position to be in, but look at it as an opportunity so you can actually display something there. When somebody asks you a question, best to not just say, well, that's ridiculous, and move on. Instead, acknowledge it and say, I totally understand where you're coming from on that. It's not uncommon for people to want to adjust commission. But then go into this, but let me tell you why that should make you nervous. Should I do that? Because if I was willing to do that and just want to get this deal done with you, what's going to happen when a lower offer comes in? Am I going to negotiate with that, or am I just want to get it done with you too? Am I going to provide as much service on the front end of this listing in bringing eyes and bringing people into your home? It's unlikely that people that will reduce that commission will go to that extent. And I can tell you from experience that that will lead to a lower amount in your pocket. So tell me, does that make sense? And you're having that conversation because that's a true concern for somebody. They see that amount that is coming off and they don't understand it all the time. And they don't understand what goes into it. So that's your job, is to demonstrate your value and to show how you will actually get them more. And I am such a strong believer in the real estate industry. Of course, you are worth every penny if you do the right things in order to get the home sold in a quick period when they need to sell it and for the best price. So you need to acknowledge their objection and say, I understand where you're coming from. I hear you. They need to understand that we're on the same page. We're on the same team here, and they need to know that. But there is a cost associated with having the most eyes and the most people into the property. The other thing that needs to be discussed here, when that comes up, you need to separate two things. You need to take out the buyer side commission and the listing commission, and you need to show them that this is half and half. So oftentimes they're going to look at that main number, and they're going to continue to stick at that main number, but you need to break it off. So you need to break it off that this is ours, this is theirs, this is what we're working with. Wouldn't adjust the buyer side, however that looks like for you, but they need to understand the difference between the two. Now you also need to show a lot of confidence in your marketing and in your pitch. They need to understand where the value actually comes from. There's a few things that I jump into when I'm trying to really show the ability of the marketing that we do, and that's with professional photography, professional videos, 3D tours, Facebook ads, open houses, all of these things. If you are an agent that has the highest standard, which I assume you are, then you will be putting all of this money and time and effort into getting the most amount of people through the home. That's why it's so important. So this is what I go into. I go into the importance of marketing because you want eyes. Digital and in person, you want a lot of eyes on the property. And then I get into the other element of it is bringing as many people as we can into the property and making them fall in love when they're in the home. So you're going through the sales process. Another thing is once you actually receive that offer, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you work into the conditional period. X number of properties will fall apart on conditions. You do not want a real estate agent that just forgets about it when things go conditional. You need that period, and that is a very important period. Otherwise, you're just going to be accumulating days on market during a conditional period. So you bring that up too. That's something that's not normally brought up, is your value during that conditional period. Bring that up. Understand that you are there to help move this deal forward. You're negotiating on their behalf. So what you're doing when they bring that objection up is you are acknowledging it. You are saying that it should make them nervous because this is an important process. And at the end of the day, if you have somebody who's just willing, and I know we've heard this a million times that, well, if I'm not willing to negotiate on my commissions, then I'm not going to help negotiate when it comes time for an offer. We've heard that strategy before. So this is the same strategy, but it's a little bit of a tweak on it. And you're saying, you're putting them in a place where they're understanding it should make them nervous. If an agent just says, yeah, no problem, I'll cut the commission, we'll swipe out the video, we'll swipe out the professional photography, I'll just go through with my iPhone. What is that truly going to get the seller at the end of the day? And I think we know the answer. It's going to get them a lower result, okay? Next are the two things that can be used once you start to get into more extreme circumstances. So, number one is, and you'll hear this one from time to time too, if they start to continue to push it, you say, okay, that's great. This is the investment for what you receive here. Is there something that you'd remove from here in order to have a lower investment? Leave that with them and just see where that goes. That's starting to get a little bit more intense, but it's something that can be used from time to time, and it can be very effective because they understand that there's an investment associated with this. Of course, it's the food on your table too, which is why you should be very passionate about it. But also, it is what is they're going to get in their pocket at the end of the day, and what this marketing is truly all about. Very, very important. Next, and finally, if they continue to push and they continue to say, well, we're not going to do it for that amount, or just going to do it on our own, or something like that, acknowledge that and say, that's why there's options out there, and be willing to just let it go. Be willing to let those sellers go. That puts you into a position of power. Understand that you don't need every single listing that comes your way. If that's how they're going to respond to you, there's a chance that it's going to be a difficult process as you move through the listing process, and when you're active and when you're conditionally sold and before possession, you could run into a lot of issues. Don't be afraid of letting something go that just doesn't work with your style. Let's recap. Value and price. Your value has to be up here compared to the competition so they understand why you're worth your price. Number two, you need to show all of the value first, so this objection doesn't even come into play. You need to show all of the value associated with the service that you provide, and then you cut that objection right out when it comes down to it. Next, if it does come up, will you reduce your commission? Acknowledge and say, I totally understand where you're coming from. It's not uncommon for people to want to reduce the commission so they have more in their pocket. However, let me tell you why that should make you nervous. Because an agent that's willing to do that, if an offer was to come in, it's very likely they'll just kind of push it through, and it can leave you with less at the end of the day. They continue to push it, you then get into confidence in your marketing. Well, my marketing, I can guarantee you that most number of eyes will be on it through our professional photography. You're getting back into that. You're repeating all of the value statements. And then also, I like to indicate to them There's more that we do than, of course, just MLS, and that's on the marketing side. But if they're seeing it on Facebook, if they're seeing it, they're coming through and seeing an open house, and then they're hearing about it from a friend because they saw it on their Facebook, and then they see it on MLS. This is all part of the sales process. I then also like to bring up the conditional period and how important it is during that period to have somebody on your side because deals fall apart. Finally, if they continue to push, you can say, is there anything in here that you would remove? And if they say, well, I wouldn't do that, then you can start moving towards, is this the right relationship for you? It's a relationship. You want to build a relationship with these people. If it's not the right fit, you need to be willing to let it go. It can harm you can be stressed out. It can get into your lifestyle. We've all had clients like this that are just too draining on us. They're just not worth it. If they continue to push and they want that, that's why there's options out there. And there's nothing wrong with them wanting to do it themselves or go with a discounted option. If that's the route they want to go, then perhaps they're just part of that population, or that's just what they want to do, and that's why there's options out there. So thank you very much for listening to this. We'll talk to you later.